Good morning. I'm Federico Mazzini and welcome to this first edition of the 3MT, 3 Minutes Thesis competition to be held in Padua and to be organized by the Coimbra Group. I'm Federico Mazzini, your host for the night, I guess. And I will spend just a few words to explain what the competition is, what the Coimbra work group is, and what the working group doctoral studies inside the Coimbra group is. Well, the Coimbra group is a network of European universities, well-established European university, 38 of them, that was founded in 1985. And that has the objective of fostering European collaboration in research and the internationalization of research in European universities. It has at the present time 1,300,000 students. And, of course, Padua University, being founded in 1222, is one of them. So why are we here today? We are here for a competition that will see 11 of our PhD students explaining their thesis in just 3 minutes and with just one single slide with no animation. This is a competition that was born in 2008 in Queensland University in Australia and that rapidly spread in New Zealand and in the Anglo-Saxon world and is now being done by more than 350 universities all around the world. The particular competition we are staging today was fostered by the working group of doctoral studies inside the Coimbra group, and it will see the winner of today competing in the annual General Assembly that will be held in June 2016 with all the others winners in other universities that are inside the Coimbra group. So today we are deciding the winner of this competition for our university, for our department, sorry. Then we will decide in March the winner of the Padua University, l'Ateneo di Padova, and then the working group will decide the 3 finalists that will compete in Edinburgh in June. So I will just, probably most of you already know the rules, but I will just review them for who doesn't know it. So we will have a single static PowerPoint with no slide transition, no animation or movement of any kind. There will not be any additional electronic media. No sound or video files are permitted. There are no additional props, like you cannot wear a costume. I think it's not a problem today. And you can't use musical instruments, all right? And have a laboratory equipment, not a problem for historians. The presentation has to be in spoken words, so it says here, no poems, no raps, no songs, please. And most important, the presentations have to be limited to 3 minutes. And we will have there a counter, a chronometer. So this is really the only rule, so we have to be strict on that. And we will. Anybody that goes over that limit is disqualified. Of course, the judgment of our panel that is composed by Adelisa Malena, Università di Verona, Alfredo Bonopane, Università di Venezia, scusami, Alfredo Bonopane, Università di Verona, Ivan Rey dell'Università de 3 de Febrero, Argentina, their judgment is final, of course, and the winner will have 100 euros to spend at Feltrinelli in books, or whatever you want. You can also buy pens, I guess. But we also have a popular jury, meaning all of you that are not presenting, and that can cast one single vote, and that will award the winner, the popular choice winner, with 50 euros in books. All right. Now for the judging criteria, and I'm closing it. You will be judged on how easy it is to comprehend your thesis, how good you are on presenting it, how good you are in stripping it down to 3 minutes. But you will also be judged on your theatrical skills, your ability to draw and present a single slide, and also how you can communicate with the public and making yourself not only understandable but pleasurable and easy to listen. And I think the major point is at the end of these 3 minutes, will I want to know more about what you're doing? So this is the point, I guess. And well, even though these competitions are not really part of our academic tradition, I think that we can all agree that this is a very important exercise we are doing here. Not only because communicating your work is an important part of your skills as researchers and as academics, but also because it forces you to look in depth of what you are really doing and how what you are doing, to go to the core of your research and thinking about how the so-called outside world can see you. And you might object that 3 minutes, you will never asked by your colleagues to explain your stuff, your work in 3 minutes, and that's true. But as I said, this is a way to think at the core of your research and the perception of the outside world. And given the recent events and the role of the intellectual the sorry role of the intellectual that emerged from what happened in the Anglo-Saxon world just a few days ago, it might be that in the future 3 minutes is all you have. So good luck. I will be calling each of you in alphabetical order. We also have 5 of you that are not here, and we will hear them from video. I ask you to present standing here, just here, so that it will be easier for us to tape you down. And yeah, it's Elisa Baccini will talk about lingua e cultura nell'Italia napoleonica.
So in recent years, Napoleon's cultural imperialism has been a theme at the center of the historical debate on French domination in Italy. I wonder, why don't study that matter not only from the point of view of cultural policy in general, but focusing in particular on French language? As answer to this question, my research has the goal to analyze aspects and implications of the Napoleonic language policy, which involve in various ways all the Italian territories. Theaters, educational system, bureaucracy, and press are the areas in which we can investigate a more evident policy. For example, theater was used in Italy as one of the key tools for the Francization of the Italia, because Napoleon, aware of the educational power of theater, used it to promulgate French culture and idea in Italy, but most of all, he used it as a way to spread French language among the Italian population. In fact, he introduced 2 companies of actors, French actors, whom actually play in French on the main stages of Italian theaters. Regarding instead the school system, in Italy was introduced the teach of French in all the schools and academies, all of which were conceived as a perfect place to propagation of French language and literature, of course. But concerning the more general cultural policy issue, my research tried to analyze on the linguistic and cultural ground, the rigidity of Napoleonic cultural imperialism. Because Napoleon, besides imposing his hegemony and his government, imposed the entire French cultural system, and with it, French language, setting off major changes in all the Italian society. So, I'll try to make some results, and because it doesn't need to be added that after the end of French domination, language issue was not closed at all. On the contrary, it was at the center, at the core of the Italian national question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Giulio Biondi, that will talk about the teorie e pratiche della moderazione tra Medioevo ed età moderna.
I chose a topic, moderation, and its research field, theoretical and practical, and then I placed this concept in a specific period, late medieval and early modern period. What is your purpose, one can ask? To demonstrate that moderation, understood as a rule, as a measure, has become not only a theory, not only a set of rules of good manner, not a series of economic requirements, not the focus of state policy, for example. Moderation, in short, has become a canon, a pattern imposed and then also practiced by society. But which society? I mean that society between two eras marked by a considerable economic and commercial expansion, as well as in a growing phase of monetization. It is precisely in such a period that moderation was offer and then enforced by law the possibility to deal with lexicon and also practice of saving, decorum, decency, and obviously moderation. Moderation because theories and practice in different geography and in different political realities has therefore become a canon, a global project. For this reason, in the slide you can see a globe made with the matter. In the end, before 10 minutes end, I conclude, I think that the development of this research points out that moderation is to be understood as an organization of desire, as a way not only to act but also to think, and a concept that has nothing to do with being poor or indigent. To me, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Thank you. Erika Carminati sulla dominazione veneziana in terraferma, comportamenti rituali e ruolo simbolico dei rettori municipali.
My research deals with civic rituals in Venetian mainland and in particular in the city of Bergamo. The focus on one single urban context permits to observe the ritual dynamics between the municipal institution and the republican one, but also makes possible to observe the cultural and the ritual observation of the dynamics and the direction of the different social bodies. I work mostly on primary sources of two kinds. On one hand, I analyze normative sources, such as legislation, administrative orders, or books of ceremonials. And on the other hand, I analyze narrative sources, for example, diaries, chronicles, or letters that can show the practices and the praxis beyond the well-established form and the norm. I think that my research could achieve different purposes. First, it could answer some theoretical questions about the category of the ritual that can be summed up in one question: what does ritual do? And that's been long discussed not only by historiography, but also by sociology and anthropology. Here are some answers that I could find out up to now, and that, of course, are valid for the period and the context that I'm studying. Second, my research aims to consider the relationship between Venice and its mainland in the cultural sphere and in the public sphere, where institutional identities are shown and where the social bodies normally exclude on political interaction and action, can use a patrimony of shared symbols and codes to express particularly political requests or position towards institutions and authorities, especially in this period that is characterized by a renewed and a strong attention to rituals, collective performances, and devotion to, in the frame of the secularization process, and in the frame also of the formation of the contemporary diplomatic languages. Thank you.
Next up is Francesco Furlan. Il racconto escatologico apocalittico nelle dinamiche di conflitti, processi paralleli di rilettura del nemico e di espressione delle ansie messianiche nelle produzioni escatologiche arabe e bizantine. This is 3 minutes, I think, and is not here with us today, so we will watch the video he sent us.
Hello everybody, my name is Francesco Furlan and I study Christian and Muslim apocalyptic texts from the 7th to the 9th century. This period came just after the Muslim conquest of the Near East. The tumultuous events related to the war produced a widespread feeling of the proximity of the end times. Many Christians believed that the Muslim conquests were a trial coming for their sins. Many Muslims interpreted those hard times as a form of punishment for their disbelief. Everybody was waiting for a savior in the form of Jesus Christ or of an earthly Messiah, and everybody believed that the end of the world was at hand. Many texts were produced in the languages of the Christian Levant, Greek, Syriac, Armenian, Coptic, etc., and many thousands of Islamic traditions were written in Arabic, dealing with the end times. So, you may ask, and sometimes I ask myself, why should someone study these ancient prophecies? As you may have noticed, the word is intended, but anyway, there are several reasons to study these texts. First of all, we can retrieve from them historical sources. These works were mostly written for political propaganda and conveyed fake prophecies about events which were in reality already happened. In this way, it is possible to gain a deeper knowledge of the events of the conflict between the Byzantine Empire and the Muslim Caliphate. Another point of interest lies in the comparative analysis of the apocalyptic mindset. Even today, many Christian, Muslim, and Jewish movements interpret the current events as forebearers of the end times. This worldview has practical consequences. As we said, apocalyptic traditions have often a political purpose and try to determine the actions of the community and to give it directions. Apocalyptic traditions is the comprehension of historical events and give the world a significant order. They provide spatial and temporal coordinates and gives to the chaotic events of human history divine sense and order. It is thus possible to underline the value of apocalyptic traditions as a roadmap for the agency of human communities through history. Even today, the self-proclaimed Islamic State uses the very same traditions I study as a tool of political propaganda, and it also interprets the current events in the light of these texts. In the same way, many Christian groups look at the early apocalypses. We can see how the apocalyptic mindset is far from over and how these texts are brought to new life.
Next up, Valerio Larcher, talking map, what German and Italian historical atlas production reveals on continuity.
The image of the map does not only depict, it clarifies, explains, comments, and describes. The historical map is an historical testimony itself. With these words, the authors of the Grosser Historischer Weltatlas in 1953 recognized the political importance of the maps included in their historical atlas. Nowadays, it is widely recognized that historical atlases have been, and to a certain extent still are, fundamental instruments of national building. With this in mind, the goal of my PhD research is relatively simple. I want to study how nationalistic policies and cultures emerge from the comparative analysis of the depiction of South Tyrol in German and Italian historical atlases, produced between the end of the process of national unification and the end of the Cold War. I choose to analyze maps that depict South Tyrol because of the importance given to border region in nationalistic narrations. Consequently, it is arguable that these maps have often been real historical cartographical workshops where to develop new propaganda tools. For this project, I developed a peculiar methodology based on historiographical, geographical, cartographical, statistical, and chromatic analysis. This methodology, chiefly the chromatic analysis, which is based on the psychological theory of colors, is new and constantly evolving, given the scarcity of works on the field of historical atlases studies. As expected, the first results show a continuity in policies and cultural practices which does not reflect the traditional historical division based on regime changes, but is coherent with the historiographical school that underlines great continuity in 19th and 20th century Europe. Thank you.
Next up, Sara Lucchetta, Cartografie dell'immaginario, patrimoni narrativi delle Dolomiti.
Can maps tell stories? Or can stories orient the readers in space as maps? The relationship between literature and cartography have been long debated from different perspectives. Maps stimulate imagination and fantasy, inspiring writers to create new possible worlds. Moreover, writers engaged in maps have much to say to cartographers. My research concerns one of the manifold relationship between literature and cartography, that is to say, reader-generated maps. Reader-generated maps are maps created after the reading of a literary text. They are engaged by readers as tools to understand the text, or as devices to understand space, or as strategies to build new gazes on the world. My research is multi-scholar. Metaphorically, it is like a map. It ranges from a global scale to a more local one. Joining different scales, I am at keeping together the different phenomenologies of literary mapping in the digital age. The first scale is global. It deals with literary mapping spreading all over the world through the web. Thanks to web mapping services accessibility, in recent years people started to map different kinds of things, including literature. Researching literary mapping practices performed by very different communities can help to understand how literature contributes in constructing the world. The second scale is a sort of zoom-in. It deals with literary mapping in geographical didactics. My aim is to reflect upon literary mappings performed by university students during a literary cartography workshop. As a complex spatial practice, literary mapping can convey geographical knowledge and can encourage spatial thinking. The third scale is a sort of individual scale. My aim is to analyze literary mapping performed by myself. With an auto-ethnographic approach, I will enter the literary text with a mapping wheel and try to understand how literature materially guides into the world. Thus, my last exploration will be centered on understanding how narrations make words readable and visible. Thank you.
Next up is Olivia Simeon, immigranti italiani nella Moldavia romena tra la fine dell'Ottocento e l'inizio del Novecento.
Today, all of us know that Italy is mostly a country of immigration, meaning it receives every year a huge amount of immigrants from all over the world. A lot of them are Romanian, and they count now more than 1 million people in Italy. But let us travel back in time, more than a century ago. What would we see there? Well, probably the opposite image of the reality we are used to, because at the end of the 19th century, Italians were those who emigrated in very large numbers, and some of them even chose Romania as their destination. So my research revolves around the Italian immigration in a region of Romania called Moldavia at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, more precisely from 1876 until 1915, a time when both countries were stable from a political and territorial point of view. The purpose of my research is to identify the general characteristics of this migration flow. What we know at this point is that the majority of the immigrants came from the northeastern parts of Italy, like Veneto, Friuli, and Trentino. Their number wasn't very big, and it is also very hard to estimate it due to the lack of complete official statistics. But the importance of this migration does not reside in its numbers, in the quantities, but in the big contribution that some of these immigrants made in the process of modernization of the country. They went to Romania to build railways, roads, bridges, churches, and a lot of other buildings in an era when the young Romanian kingdom needed a lot of qualified labor force. So my research is aiming at bringing to light as many cases as possible of Italian immigrants in Moldavia by studying the Romanian and Italian archives, which we think it will benefit both the countries as well as the small Italian community that still lives in Romania today. And it is very important to know a part of our common history, whose results you can still see today if you walk around the cities and villages of Romania, and to know that this kind of reverse history existed in the past, like the slide shows us. Thank you.
Next up is Stefano Torrini, Land Grabbing e ridefinizione dei confini nell'era del mercato globalizzato, proposta per uno studio relativo ai processi di land grabbing. We will see his video.
In recent years, great extensions of land have become objects of a new increasing commercial pressure. Private investors and states are the main protagonists. But why are those actors interested in land? The convergence between the climatic, financial, energetic and food crisis threatened their economy. So, they found in agribusiness a new way to protect their capital. Targeted lands have been described as empty, marginal and unproductive, so finally available. Some observe the development of these investments as a good opportunity for local development. Other scholars describe it as neo-colonialism. My research focuses in the River Nile state, Sudan. Because these waste lands constitute the majority of this country, this state has been described as a sleeping giant. Obviously, this is an highly politicized concept, but anyway it could be useful for my research. Indeed, in this way we can refer to this kind of investments as a new agricultural awakening in Sudan. This is not only the answer to a global precarious economy, but also the process of the domestic policies in Sudan, that is called the hydroagricultural mission. In the River Nile state, the hydroagricultural mission expresses itself through the constitution of ultra-thin spaces. These are, for me, the radicalization of what J.C. Scott called the thin spaces. These are the national projects whose aim is to reinforce state control on people and resources. Anyway, these kind of investments are ultra-thin spaces because they want to produce a new relationship between the state and its citizens, a separation between the economy and the territory. So, this is my research, and why should I think it is important? I think this is important because to explore the repositioning and the rethinking of the state in the global economy could be useful in order to understand how the capital accumulates what, until now, it has been outside of itself. Something that refers to what Saskia Sassen called the disassembling of the national territory through the policies of the land grabbing.
Now we have another video, Daniele Sacco-Zirio, Immigrati e Epurazione, gli italiani in Francia tra giustizia, immigrazione e politica internazionale 1939-1940.
How do societies and nations wage peace? When we consider war, we think about its causes and premises, its protagonists and their strategies, its violence and its destructions, its conclusion, but we are likely to forget, or at least neglect, the fact that peace is an equally engaging enterprise that needs time, needs social, political and intellectual strategies, needs work and plans. In short, peace needs to be built, needs to be made. In the larger context of waging peace in Europe after the Second World War, I investigate into the case of Italian immigrants in France. Enemies during the war, undesirable after it, how did 500,000 Italians reconcile with French people and authorities? How did they renew social bonds with the hosting community? Within the Italian diaspora, anti-fascist organizations tried to provide some answers to these questions, and they did so elaborating a program in order to renegotiate and legitimize the Italian presence in France. This program was based on three main elements. First of all, the reconstruction of the recent past of the war. A reconstruction that stressed on the Italian participation on French struggle of resistance against the Nazi occupation. Second, the purification of Italian community through justice, by reporting and punishing those who compromised with fascism and its crimes. And last but not least, the incitation to all Italian immigrants to provide the workforce needed for the French reconstruction. So, the work deployed to shape collective memory based on the shared experiences and values to provide a renewed and clean image of Italian community and to underline the role of Italian workforce, of Italian work in the reconstruction and in the recovery of French economy was an essential part of the process of overcoming the conflict and overcoming its breakdowns, its social breakdowns.
Another video, yet another one, Aimone Grossato, Forme della regalità e topografia del potere nel X secolo tra Bisanzio, gli Ottoni e il Califfato di Cordova.
Let us just imagine we are in the city of Frankfurt in the middle of the 10th century. And pretty much like the Arabian Nights, our tale begins in a palace. Although the skyline of the city of Frankfurt was probably not as impressive as it is today, nonetheless it hosted a very peculiar encounter between two different worlds. The envoy of the Islamic Caliphate of Cordova, Resemund, and the later envoy of the Ottonian Kingdom, Liutprand of Cremona, met at the Palace of Frankfurt, and apparently, if we trust the sources, they became really good friends. Later, both Liutprand and Resemund would have acquired great fame for their missions in the east at the magnificent court of the Byzantine Emperor in Constantinople. The purpose of the Ottonian envoy in Byzantium was basically to obtain the hand of a Byzantine princess for the son of the Saxon emperor. On the other hand, Rhesymon was sent in Constantinople in order to acquire decorations for the new palace of the Caliph near Cordova. Although their objectives could seem quite different, in their reality, the aim of their request was exactly the same. Both the Caliph and the Christian emperor of the West looked toward Byzantium in order to consolidate their legitimacy among their subjects and neighbors. But how far did the incorporation of Byzantine elements and symbols contribute to the construction of the ceremonial and the topography of the Umayyad and Ottonian courts? Who were the agents of this process? In order to answer these questions, my research adopted cross-cultural analysis of both written and material sources, which deal primarily with the court ceremonial and the construction of the places of power, the courts and the palaces of the caliphs and emperors. Both the Caliphate of Cordova and the Ottonian Empire in the middle of the 10th century were still young institutions, and therefore their privileged diplomatic relations with Byzantium attest to their effort to gain a new and strong legitimacy, which shared some common rituals and symbols. Our perception of this distant world is too often focused on the conflicts between kingdoms which differed in so many ways. First of all, their religious belief. But the reality of this tale of emperors and caliphs was much more complicated, and the political confrontation was just an aspect of it, and of course not the most important. Thank you.
Yet another video, Ivan Pagliaro, il PC e la Popular Music, ascesa e caduta del partito pedagogo 1943-1991.
Why should the Italian Communist Party have had anything to say about music? Well, the Italian Communist Party was a political party who aimed at representing the interests of the working class. And it managed to represent roughly a third of the Italian population over a time span of roughly 70 years. And music became a huge part of everyday life for millions of people after the development of consumer society, which happened in Italy after World War II. So, since the PCI provided guidelines for many aspects of public and private lives of its activists, were there any guidelines when it came to music, especially popular music? Well, in the beginning, music was perceived only as a product of consumer society, an opium of the people, and an overall frivolous thing. But everything changed drastically as soon as the youth entered the picture between the 60s and the 70s. A new generation of party officials who until then had rarely commented out loud about music, party journalists who had sometimes underlined the social and political significance of music, and many party activists who felt that music was a crucial part of their identities started approaching popular music as a legitimate product of popular culture, thus going beyond the traditional distinction between a high and a low culture. But what about musicians? Well, they didn't actually fit the usual strategy the PCI put in place when it came to constructing the cultural hegemony within society, which involved the pivotal role of intellectuals, as was the case for literature or cinema. But with the generational turnover, the party stance changed. Well, at this point, the musicians weren't really that interested in adhering to a codified, precise party ideology, rather displaying a flexibility in the matters of political and musical tastes. So, studying the PCI through the lens of popular music is just a way to better understand how the biggest communist party of Western Europe dealt with mass culture. Thank you.
So this was our last presentation. It was a very intense marathon. And now we are having a 20 minutes, 25 minutes coffee break. Please, I will ask the popular jury to cast their vote. You can see there the ballots. And of course to our official jury to cast their own vote, and we will count them during the coffee break, and we will give you the results at the end of it. Thank you. We have our results. We will start with the popular vote, and the popular vote goes to Sara Lucchetta. Sara Lucchetta, Cartografie dell'immaginario, patrimoni narrativi delle Dolomiti. Grazie Sara. There you go. And she is winning, as I said before, a 30 euro, how do you say it? Buono. A voucher, right, a voucher. And for the main prize of our event, the scientific panel decided that the best 3 minutes presentation for 2016 goes to Baccini e Elisa, that we will see. Lingua e cultura nell'Italia napoleonica. Grazie a te. 50 euros in book vouchers. And of course, she will have the occasion to compete at university level, and who knows, maybe even at the final in Edinburgh. I'm leaving the microphone to the coordinator of our PhD course, Maria Cristina Rocca.
Thank you. Thank you. I just would like to thank you all for being here. I would like to thank very much the students who have been all very, very good. And I think that this first experiment has been a real success for our PhD and for you all. And I thank you all our public in general, our secretary Elisabetta. And so this would be just the first edition. Next year there will be certainly another one. And many congratulations to the two winners, Sara and Elisa. And I hope to see you all in the final of the University of Padua. Bye.